You have probably saw a lot of people on the internet calling something propaganda and just leaving at it without further explaining it. So instead of that, I will explain how propaganda works, what kind of fallacies it uses, and how it tries to influence you through emotions. And today we are doing Stonetoss comics. He's a prominent Nazi comic creator, and you have probably seen his work on Twitter or similar sites. And the first one is a comic against the LGBT people. And the main message of this comic is that LGBT acceptance is just a religion. It does this to undermine the legitimacy of LGBT acceptance. Presenting it as a religion implies that there is no good and logical reason to support it. So it just tries to discredit any argument for LGBT acceptance. Another thing this comic does is trying to justify homophobia as something that cannot be questioned. So in most Western countries you have religious freedoms, and you cannot really be forced to change your religion. So if you have a certain religion, then people can't really force another religion on you. And from the point of view of this comic, this also includes homophobia. Also, people don't have to justify their religion, so if you treat LGBT acceptance not as a civil right, but as a religion, well, you don't really have to justify being homophobic. It also tries to present homophobic people as the actual victims, and tries to argue that people advocating for LGBT acceptance are trying to push their religion on homophobic people, just generally attacking their religious freedoms and personal beliefs. The second one is about the recent riots in the United Kingdom, and you can tell this based on the tweet of the guy. This topic was also covered by other prominent soy boys like Matt Walsh, and it uses the exact same propaganda technique. So during the recent riots in the UK, some people were arrested for inciting violence. And yes, urging people to murder other people also violates community guidelines of social media platforms, but mainly it also violates law. So what people were arrested for is violating the law and not the community guidelines. So this comic is trying to downplay the crimes committed by these rioters and people who were inciting these riots and violent acts, and it tries to present the UK government as an authoritarian government that is arresting people for minor things. This is basically the same as saying that Thomas Crooks was killed by the Secret Service for practicing his Second Amendment rights. The third one implies that there are certain things that are dogmatic and cannot be questioned, like certain elements of the Second World War. It tries to legitimize Holocaust denial, pretending it is just simple skepticism, which are two different things. Denying the Holocaust is making a statement, but being skeptical is not accepting a claim without evidence, which you can and should do. And there is nothing preventing you from questioning the Holocaust, which is not believing it at face value and asking for evidence, in which case you can be pointed towards the evidence. But if instead of that you just make a claim that it did not happen, that is not skepticism. There is a difference between saying that I am not convinced of your claim unless you present some evidence, and saying that your claim is fake without providing any evidence that it is indeed fake. And the exact same argument is also used against climate change or to support the flat earth theory, where denying the evidence and facts is falsely equated to legitimate skepticism. This one is a textbook example of the quoque fallacy, a form of ad hominem where a person's argument is attacked based on the person's behavior that is inconsistent with the argument that they are making. It presents people who don't want someone with a criminal record to be your president as people who are also criminals. Because this group of people is a homogeneous group, and every single one of them is a criminal. And you are free to make arguments why someone having a criminal record would not negatively affect their performance as a president, but this is not a good one. I mean, you could also use the exact same argument to claim that murder is not wrong. You just have to find a murderer who claims that murder is wrong. They must be incorrect because they committed the same act that they are arguing against. So I guess murder is okay now. In this one, the child is saying that I am non-binary, in binary code. So it's referencing the claim that LGBT people want to make your children gay, for some reason, and with the parents crying, it obviously implies that being non-binary or LGBT in general is a bad thing. Just generally trying to present LGBT people in a negative way. The more interesting part is using binary code to convey this message and the people being represented as computers. Obviously, it compares genders to binary code, implying that gender is also binary. If the creator of the comic just wrote it out as a simple claim, it would be easy to disprove it by bringing up women who are wearing traditionally masculine clothing, like pants, or men with characteristics that are traditionally associated with women, like being physically weak or having a feminine voice. But binary code, as the name implies, is binary, and you can't really argue with that. And the creator of the comic hopes that you will not notice that this is a false equivalence, and will just accept that since binary code is binary, and gender is being compared to it, then gender is also binary. The other implicit claim, closely related to the previous one, is that LGBT people simply deny reality, especially when it comes to the number of genders or identifying as a trans person. It's a well-known fact that binary code consists of ones and zeros, and there is no argument you can bring up against that. So when someone claims that there is a third or even more options, well, they simply deny reality. And here in this comic, this is applied to gender and sex. It's a thought-terminating cliché to just ignore any arguments from a different viewpoint without even understanding or listening to them. This one tries to make a moralistic argument against gay relationships, and there are two main problems with this comic. The medicine portrayed is a preventative medicine against HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. I won't spend much time explaining how HIV can also spread through heterosexual intercourse, and that not every homosexual is infected with HIV, mainly because apart from the creator of the comic, everyone knows it. But let's ignore the facts, because without this premise, the argument falls apart. And it also falls apart because of the fallacious reasoning, because the main argument is vaguely, if you need to take precautions to not die from something, then that thing is not normal or immoral, since normal is being used in a moralistic sense here. So using this argument, we could also conclude that construction work is also abnormal or immoral, or working in high voltage environments or at high altitude. It's also a obvious reference in the claim that AIDS is a punishment from God for the sins of homosexuals, or the newer version with monkeypox. I make more videos explaining how propaganda works and how it's trying to influence you, so if you enjoy this kind of stuff, then please subscribe, like and comment. It helps out greatly, and thank you for watching. A special thanks to my Patreons J. Brandon and R. The Bond for supporting my channel.